Chapter 482 to 483. Fujin may have tried to present a pleasant smile to ease up the atmosphere, but to Kurenai, it looked more like a perverted grin. Especially with that compliment of his, anger started to appear on her face. You. As soon as Fujin saw the change in Kurenai's expression, he realized that he had said something wrong. Terms such as very well developed shouldn't be used in this situation, as it is obviously impolite to her. Looking at Kurenai's flushed face and how she was getting angrier and angrier, Fujin sighed inwardly and immediately waved his hands and tried to explain with a slightly embarrassed expression. I am sorry, I didn't mean that. What I want to say is that your breasts are very good. No, that's not true. No, actually it's true, but that's not what I want to say. What I mean is the dash. The more Fujin spoke, the angrier Kurenai became. Finally, she couldn't bear it any longer and immediately raised her right hand to slap Fujin right in the face. You despicable, shameless pervert. Fujin easily blocked Kurenai's hand, which was about to slap him, and said with a triumphant smirk, If you think that you can slap me with such low speed, then you are obviously dreaming. You. I'll kill you. Kurenai immediately became angrier and raised her leg to kick Fujin right in the gut. But again her leg was caught by Fujin and held over his shoulder. Heh, do you think a sneak attack with such slow speed works on me? I told you earlier. You are not fast enough to be able to hit me. Moreover, if you do raise your leg in this way, you are practically asking me to. Fujin didn't complete his sentence and just cast his gaze downwards, as he was getting a direct and open view of Kurenai's honey pot. Feeling Fujin's gaze, Kurenai was more embarrassed and immediately withdrew her legs, then stretched the kimono downwards to cover her privates. But it didn't help much. The length of the kimono was short because Fujin's height is only up to Kurenai's shoulder, and even when Fujin wore the kimono, it only reached up to his hips. So on Kurenai, the kimono barely reached up to her hip line. Seeing that her face was getting darker and darker, Fujin sighed and directly explained, Well, the reason I had to remove your clothes was that they were already tattered, so they weren't covering anything in the first place. Moreover, I had to treat your injuries. If I hadn't given you immediate treatment, you would have died, so... Listening to Fujin's words, Kurenai's expression changed. And at this moment, she also realized that ever since she tried slapping Fujin, she is feeling pain and a burning sensation around her shoulder and breast. Without saying anything, she turned around then, opened the kimono belt to check the state of her injury, and immediately saw the bandages soaked in blood. It started to bleed again, right? Fujin spoke from behind. Kurenai didn't speak anything, just nodded slightly. Seeing her nod, Fujin said, I am not a professional medic nin, so I couldn't heal your wound completely, but I managed to stop the bleeding and stitched it. This much is generally sufficient to start a natural healing mechanism in our body, but because your chakra is sealed so your body did not start the natural healing process, the wound was only stitched. Then you went and made rigorous hand movement. So the stitches were undone, and it started bleeding again. And whose fault do you think is that? Shouted Kurenai in anger. Obviously yours, said Fujin with an unfazed expression. Kurenai turned her head and gave a death glare to Fujin, but Fujin had a thick face and said casually, I am not the one who asked you to try slapping me, so obviously it is your fault. Kurenai didn't reply. She was feeling a headache now. First a kidnapper, then undead Hokages, and now a justified shameless pervert. She didn't know what bad things she did that she is forced to face such terrible karma. Noting Kurenai's silence, Fujin took out a bandage and said, Come here. I'll stitch your wound again and change the bandages. No reply from Kurenai. Fujin said again, If you don't want me to, then I won't. But know that you won't be able to survive much longer with that kind of wound. There is also poison in your body, and it has yet to be cleansed away. And without cleansing the poison, you won't be able to use chakra. I tried cleansing it earlier while you were unconscious, but upon my analysis, I deduced that it's not an ordinary poison. So its method of cleansing is different. I needed you to be conscious to cleanse the poison. So it's best that I first stitch back your wound, then cleanse the poison, or else you will die. No reply from Kurenai, but she didn't doubt his words about the poison in her body, and it is the cause of her chakra being sealed. After all, Orochimaru did give a short description of the poison he used on her, and she remembers it clearly. Fujin sighed and put back the bandages. If you don't want to believe what I am saying, then it's your choice, but know that you have only until sunset tomorrow. If the poison within your body is not cleansed by then, you will die. I can have poison cleaned at Konoha, said Kurenai with a cold tone. Of course, you can return to Konoha and have poison in your body be cleansed, but with your chakra sealed, it would take at least a week for you to return, and that too if you travel 24/7 without taking even a single break. But by then you would have long been dead, and even your corpse would have been decayed because of the poison. No reply from Kurenai, but if one were to look at her face, he would notice her gritting her teeth in frustration. Damn it! Why didn't I learn medical ninjutsu? What's wrong with her? Fujin can't help but look at Kurenai's back with a confused expression. Does she really want to die? After a long silence, Kurenai turned around and slowly said in a dark tone, If you dare look at places you shouldn't and try taking any extra actions, I will kill you. Fujin carefully waved his hand and assured Kurenai with a chuckle. Relax, I have already seen everything, while I was treating you earlier, so you don't really have anything left to hide from me. So does it really matter if I see again, right? Besides, even if you were not in this weak state, you wouldn't even be able to touch me, much less kill me. Although Kurenai didn't say anything to retort Fujin's words, the click of her tongue and the deathly glare in her eyes clearly indicated that if she had the ability to kill people with her glare, she would have literally killed this bastard at this very instant. Fujin didn't really care about Kurenai's glare he was getting, and just beckoned her to sit down on the stone bed and remove the kimono. Kurenai sighed and followed suit. After sitting on the stone bed, she dropped the kimono from her shoulders. Of course, she didn't completely remove the kimono, but at least it was covering her lower parts. Then Fujin carefully removed the blood-soaked bandages, which allowed Kurenai to see how serious the injury is. Even half of her right breast was cut. After removing the bandages, Fujin also removed the broken stitches, washed away the blood, applied antiseptic, poured yang chakra to temporarily stop the bleeding, and again stitched the wound with his hair, then wrapped the bandages over it again. After tying the bandages, Fujin said to Kurenai, "All done. Already?" Everything was done in less than 2 minutes, and Kurenai even felt that Fujin is quite professional in it. But on a more important note, from beginning to end, Fujin didn't show any extra reaction, nor did his eyes wander around. This made Kurenai look at him strangely, but she chose to remain silent and was somewhat relieved because if he had shown some reaction, it would be extremely embarrassing for her. This act of Fujin gave him some points in Kurenai's good books. Though he is shameless, he does not seem to be a pervert. Fujin obviously didn't know Kurenai's thoughts, and even if he knew, he wouldn't care too much. The reason he is not showing any reaction to Kurenai's nude body is that he has already experienced being a woman, so it's nothing new to him. At the same time, he knows how uncomfortable it is when people don't look at your face but your chest. While Kurenai adjusted the kimono again, Fujin said, "Next comes the cleansing of poison in your body. But before cleansing it, you need to understand what kind of poison is in your body." Kurenai immediately said, "Back when Orochimaru poisoned me, he said that it is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless poison that is difficult to detect by ordinary means. He also said that it does not take effect unless the target uses their chakra, and once target uses their chakra, the poison would instantly plague their bodies unless an antidote is provided." Fujin, listening to the description of poison in Kurenai's words, then shook his head. "Orochimaru obviously lied to you, no? To be exact, he misguided you." Kurenai asked with a frown, "What do you mean?" Fujin said, "The essence of a shinobi is deception. We are a race that would spout out any and all kind of bull crap in order to deceive others, and Orochimaru did the same with you." After a pause, Fujin continued again, "Most of the effects are correct as he described, except what's inside your body is not poison, so there's no antidote for it. Perhaps he wanted to give you hope into believing that as long as you will help him do whatever he wanted to use you for, you will have a chance of survival." Kurenai's expression changed, and she was a bit panicked. "But if it is not a poison, then what's inside my body? And what do you mean that there is no antidote? Does that mean I will die after all?" Fujin patted Kurenai's head lightly and said, "Relax, just because there's no antidote for it does not mean there is no cure." Kurenai paused, waiting for Fujin's explanation. As for Fujin's hand patting her head, Kurenai did not make any effort to remove it. "Good girl," thought Fujin internally, then said, "What's inside your body is not some kind of poison. Rather, they're some creatures, more exactly, they are snakes, small and fine enough to move through human blood vessels. And there are millions of such snakes inside your body." "What?" Kurenai's face now had a horrifying look. She was literally scared now. Millions of snakes? But how? Fujin nodded with a solemn expression. "The poison Orochimaru described to you were most likely snake eggs, millions of micro-sized snake eggs, and these eggs were inhaled by you. These eggs hatched under the stimulation of your chakra and resulted in the birth of millions of snakes that started to slowly release poison into your body, which is probably the cause of your body's weakness. And I have judged that if you use chakra, then a major part of that chakra will be constantly absorbed by those snakes, and they will grow in number and size. How big they can grow, I have no idea, but I think you can understand the implication." Kurenai quickly questioned, "And if I don't use chakra?" Fujin continued, "Even if you don't use chakra, they will grow in size. Although their growth will be slow, they will grow nonetheless, and in this case, they will eat your insides to grow, which would mean I would die the most painful and gore death." Kurenai's face paled and asked, "Then what should I do? Doesn't it mean that regardless of whether I use chakra or not, I will die?" "Normally, yes, you would die, unless an incredibly skilled medical nin like Senju Tsunade takes care of your treatment. But given your condition, you would die before you can get back to Konoha, so letting Senju Tsunade treat you is not an option for you. But you don't have to worry too much, although I am not a medical nin. I do have extensive knowledge of the human body, poisons, and antidotes. Therefore, I would say you are in luck, and I might be able to cure you. You can treat me? But how? Questioned Kurenai with a suspicious tone. While you were unconscious, I analyzed your blood, the snakes present in your circulatory system, as well as the poison they were releasing, and using the information I gained, I concocted a poison that will successfully kill the snakes in your body. However, it has a risk. The poison is too potent. Although it can kill all the snakes within 10 minutes, the process would be very painful for you. It wouldn't be wrong of me to say that those 10 minutes will be literal hell for you. And trust me when I say this, you would much rather prefer to die and end it all than live through those 10 minutes of agony. Not to mention there is a 91% risk that you would still die. So it's ultimately your choice whether you want to try this method or not. If you don't, then you will surely die. If you do, then you might survive. Explained Fujin in great detail. After a long silence, Kurenai finally nodded. I will take the poison. Noting Kurenai's resolute expression, Fujin didn't question her anymore and said lightly, in that case, lie down and relax your nerves. Kurenai followed suit and lay on the stone bed as per Fujin's instructions. And immediately after, Fujin started injecting the prepared poison into her body. While Fujin injected the poison, Kurenai looked at his serious face with many thoughts in her mind. Did Kurenai completely trust Fujin's words? Absolutely not. How can you trust an unknown person? More so when that person is a member of an organization like Amatsukami. Fujin himself stated that the essence of a shinobi is deception, so she would be an idiot if she openly trusted him. Then why did she agree to him? Because in her heart Kurenai knows that Fujin can do whatever he wants with her. She has no power to stop him, therefore, she has no other option but to follow his instructions. The only relief she has is that he at least gave her an illusion that she was making the decision for herself, even if this illusion only removed the psychological barrier in her mind. Besides, the new emotion in her heart has been urging her to want to trust him. If she is mistaken, then she would pay dearly for her mistake. But if not, then perhaps I can. Fujin didn't know all the complicated thoughts in Kurenai's mind, and even if he knew, he wouldn't really care, because in his eyes, Kurenai is now nothing more than a pawn used to confuse Orochimaru, so he can't let her die. At this moment, Fujin just finished injecting the poison into Kurenai's body, and soon the most hellish 10 minutes of Kurenai's life started. Can she live through it? Or will she die? This is something not even Fujin can tell. Congratulations, you survived, said Fujin with a calm tone as he observed Kurenai's state. Why yes, cough cough I survived. Face pale, breathing haggard and entire body aching. If she were to describe the past 10 minutes of experience in one word, even the term hell wouldn't suffice. But without caring about her current state, Kurenai asked, Are the snakes dead? Fujin observed with his Byakugan, then said, Well, the snakes are indeed dead, but... Kurenai questioned immediately, But what? Their dead bodies are still present in your body. Moreover, a lot of your cells also died because of the poison, and all that needs to be cleansed too. You don't have to worry too much. Your normal excretory functions will play their role here and cleanse everything, said Fujin while reassuring her. So, what's the problem? Asked Kurenai with a confused tone. Fujin said, There's no major problem. It's just that urination would be somewhat painful as urine would be acidic for the next few days. At the same time, your menstrual cycle might also be affected by a week or two. So be prepared for that. Kurenai just nodded, but when it came to her menstrual cycle, she immediately asked with a suspicious tone, I won't be getting pregnant, right? Cough cough. Fujin suddenly coughed because of Kurenai's question that came out of the blue, and said with an embarrassed expression, Why are you asking this question from me? Kurenai looked at Fujin with a suspicious gaze, and seeing his embarrassed expression, she said with a stutter, And nothing, I just asked it on a spur. It seems I am still dizzy because of the poison. Listening to her words, Fujin didn't care anymore either and just said lightly, Now your life is no longer in danger, and you should be able to use chakra too. You just need to wait some time for natural recovery to kick in, and you will be fine. Therefore, you should leave this place as soon as possible and return to your village. Kurenai was hesitant. Just like this, he will allow me to go? Seeing Kurenai's hesitation, Fujin thought that she was worried about her clothes, so he said, There is a small village at 10 o'clock in the southeast. You can get clothes from there. Kurenai didn't know what to feel about the other party's words, and decided to follow with a sigh. She silently adjusted the kimono to cover all her private body parts. But not being able to bear the silence, she asked in a low voice, Why? Huh? What why? Asked Fujin with a confused look. Why? Why do you care about whether I live or die? These words took all out of her. She really wanted to know the reason why he went so far just to save her. Care about you? With a chuckle, Fujin said in disdain. Don't get me wrong, I only intended to stop Orochimaru. You just happened to be present around and got saved. I don't really care about you at all. The main purpose of Fujin in fighting against Orochimaru was to prevent him from finding clues to the sword of Totsuka. As for saving Kurenai, in addition to the fact that Kurenai is Hyuga Kuroto's subordinate in the Umbu, Fujin just intended to use rescuing Kurenai as a believable reason to have a battle against Orochimaru, in order to hide the fact that Amatsukami too is searching for Sword of Totsuka. Finally, Fujin also wanted to test the combat capability of this clone body, so he fought Orochimaru. It's not like he cares about her or anything. Kurenai stared at Fujin for a while, then said, "You can't fool me." Huh. Fujin looked at Kurenai with a confused expression. "What do you mean by can't fool you?" Kurenai lowered her head and muttered, "Although I don't know how he did it, Orochimaru actually summoned Shodame Hokage-sama and Naidame Hokage-sama. I saw them with my own eyes. Shodame Hokage-sama's would release, and Naidame Hokage-sama's water release, along with flying Raijin couldn't be faked. If you just wanted to stop Orochimaru, then there was no need to be distracted and risk your life to protect me while facing such strong enemies all at the same time. Moreover, you went and even blocked Naidame Hokage-sama's water-severing wave with your own body to protect me, which almost killed you and even exposed your identity. And that's not all. You even treated my injuries and bone fractures, as well as killed Orochimaru's snakes from my body. You did all that just to stop Orochimaru and not save me." The more she said, the more she realized just how much Fujin had done for her. And from the very beginning, he didn't ask anything in return as compensation, even allowed her to go back to Konoha as is, without worry that she might report his intelligence. Although this bastard did saw her naked, for which Kurenai would never forgive him, however, Kurenai is willing to ignore that matter, because he didn't take advantage of her when he clearly had the opportunity. So with all said and done, Kurenai would never believe that he doesn't care about her, unless he is a saint, which he clearly isn't. Fujin said with a helpless expression, Look here, girl. I think you are misunderstanding a whole of things here. If it is up to him, he would definitely kill her. After all, the girl knows too much information about him. However, if Kurenai were to die, or go missing before safely reaching back to Konoha, Orochimaru would be suspicious about Fujin's previous intentions, which is not something Fujin wants. So had no choice but to save her and also let her go. And the reason why he blocked the water-severing wave of Naidame Hokage is that he had confidence in his body to be able to resist it without getting seriously injured. As for her life is only important until she returns to Konoha. After that, he could care less whether she lives or die. In fact, he has started to consider how to secretly dispose of her. Kurenai glanced at Fujin from the corner of her eyes, her gaze wandering on his white hair and Byakugan, and decided to ask something else. Are you from the Hyuga clan? Why do you have so many Kekii Genkai? Fujin said with a smirk. It's a secret. The mask was broken during the battle, so his appearance and eyes were revealed to both Orochimaru and Kurenai. This is indeed an accident, since Orochimaru also knows this information. So Fujin decided to not erase Kurenai's memories related to his identity. When Kurenai goes back to Konoha, she would definitely report the intelligence in the Umbu. Although Fujin has a headache on how to deal with this issue, he can't care too much about it for now. Kurenai whispered lightly, A friend of mine is from the Hyuga clan and looks a little bit like you. Maybe you know him. Are you from the Hyuga clan? Fujin didn't answer. He just turned his head to the side and pondered on how to deal with this matter. The only good thing is that Kurenai didn't suspect him to be Hyuga Kuroto, as that would have been quite troublesome. Fujin would be left with no choice but to either imprison Kurenai at Anchor Vantion or secretly assassinate her. Kurenai obviously misunderstood Fujin's silence. She thought that Fujin doesn't seem to want to talk about the affairs of the Hyuga clan, so she can't help but wonder, is there any contradiction between him and the Hyuga clan? Otherwise, why else would he leave the clan and join Amatsukami? And that too at such a young age. Puff. Fujin, who was busy thinking about how to deal with the information leakage, suddenly felt a paralyzing sensation in his whole body, coughed heavily, and a mouthful of blood was spewed out without any warning. Cough, cough, puff. Kurenai was taken aback. She hurriedly stepped forward and supported Fujin, who was about to fall to the ground. Are you all right? Is it because of the previous injury? Fujin just waved his hand and said, It's all right, don't worry too much. Although Fujin expected the effects of the curse of the Kagaya clan to be very severe, he still underestimated it. In just half a day, he has vomited out a mouthful of blood a dozen times already. But Fujin is not too worried, because this is just a natural thing for the genes of the Kagaya clan. But Kurenai didn't know this. She thought that Fujin vomited out blood because he was injured by Naidame Hokage's water-severing wave while trying to save her. So she subconsciously wanted to check his injury and try to help him. Fujin stopped Kurenai's hand that was already touching his chest and said, Cough, although I do like women who take the initiative, now is neither the right time nor the right place. Maybe if you invite me some other night, I would definitely accept. Right now you should go. This place is not safe for you, and who knows if Orochimaru will show up again. Stupid. Kurenai almost had the urge to slap him, but looking at his painful face, she couldn't bring herself to. And she also got the sign that he doesn't want her to explore too deeply about him, so she consciously withdrew her hand and turned to leave. But just before she did, she asked him with a nervous expression, Can you tell me what's your name? Don't you already know? It's Fujin, questioned Fujin with a confused expression and tone. Kurenai shook her head and said, No, Fujin is your code name in Amatsukami, right? Just like Yama, Homasubi, and Suijin. I am asking your real name. Real name? What does she want to do with my real name? Is she suspicious that I am indeed Hyuga Kuroto? If that is the case, then I can't let her go. Maybe I should just imprison her at Anchor Vantion and later think about what to do with her, thought Fujin silently and started preparing to knock her down. Noting Fujin's silence, Kurenai looked downward and said, It's all right if you can't tell me. Organizations such as Amatsukami must have a lot of their rules. I just wanted to know something about you on a personal level. After all, I owe you my life. I would at least like to know the name of my savior. After a long silence and consideration, Fujin said, If you desire so much, then I shall allow you to call me Futen. Futen is the other name of Fujin, the Shinto god of wind. He would obviously not give Kurenai his real name. Futen. After chanting Futen several times, Kurenai took one last look at him, then went out of the shrine. She didn't ask for his family name, because she understood that if he wanted her to know, he would have already told her. In fact, she wasn't even sure whether Futen was his real name or not. But since he said that he would allow her to call him Futen, so she decided to accept it. Looking at Kurenai's leaving figure, Fujin no Futen, while not wearing the Fujin disguise, rubbed his chin and muttered thoughtfully, I am Kurenai's Umbu captain, so she will definitely report the cause of her disappearance and intelligence about Fujin/Futen to me when she returns to Konoha, right? Let's see if I can temper with some parts of her memory to make sure that my identity as Hyuga Kuroto is not implicated for having any kind of connection with Amatsukami. At a hidden underground laboratory in Otoge-cure, seeing Orochimaru's return, Kabuto, who was staying behind, eagerly greeted him. But upon noticing the untidy and torn clothes, along with the presence of blood on his clothing, Kabuto asked, Orochimaru-sama, did something happen? Orochimaru said with a sullen expression, I encountered a difficult opponent. Kabuto was surprised. To be considered difficult by Orochimaru alone speaks a lot. Even if the entire shinobi world is considered, there wouldn't be too many who could be considered difficult by Orochimaru, so Kabuto asked curiously, was it from the Akatsuki organization? Orochimaru shook his head and without delving deeply into the matter, he just instructed, Don't worry too much about it. Just bring me a sample of Kimimaro, Haku, Guren, Yugo, and Yamato's fresh blood. I wish to check up a few things. Kabuto immediately nodded, Yes, Orochimaru-sama. And then, he went in the direction of the secret hideout that Kimimaro is in charge of. With Kabuto gone, Orochimaru walked deeper into his laboratory, and after unsealing the entrance to the hidden grid, he took out a scroll from it and sat on a nearby stool. The scroll currently in Orochimaru's hand is the scroll of Chimera Jutsu. Orochimaru has also personally witnessed Hiriko's ritual of absorbing 5 Kekii Genkai, and understands just how greatly Hiriko's strength has increased since then. If Orochimaru were to say that he wasn't jealous at all, he would obviously be lying. But after repeatedly analyzing and studying the Chimera Jutsu, Orochimaru was very clear about the drawbacks and hidden dangers of this forbidden jutsu. Therefore, even if he thought of using it for once, he soon lost his interest in it because of the danger it posed to his life. However, today he was defeated and almost killed at the hands of Fujin, who has also absorbed several Kekii Genkai using Chimera Jutsu. Orochimaru was so annoyed that he started to doubt whether his previous judgment of Chimera Jutsu was too arbitrary. Goku looked down and closed his eyes. Waves of helplessness came over him. Why did I come here? Why was I so confident in this world where every turn is danger? Where did I think everything will go my way? Why did I think I was powerful enough? Don't look away now. It is the best part. Cooler lifted Goku's head and forced his eyes open. Seeing Frieza about to death beam her thigh unlocked something within Goku. Don't stop now, become stronger. Using all the anger he felt, he pushed it towards his conviction. Goku's hair started to flash yellow, while his eyes became a crystallized blue. Cooler's foot started to burn to melt all of what he knew about Scions. Ah! That scream felt refreshing. It blew Cooler away from the laying Scion. Slowly standing up, Frieza was mesmerized by what was before him. Golden hair, golden aura, and blue eyes. A super Scion. Blinking once, he didn't know how he got beside Cooler embedded into the wall. Giving Chi-Chi a senzu bean, her full consciousness came too. She saw her slightly different-looking husband fueled with silent rage. The situation was about to be explained to her, but instead, the communication device in Goku's pocket came first. Answering it, they both heard Bulma's voice filled with anticipation. Goku! Goku, are you there? There was something on our end, but it has been resolved. Caulifla is just got back with Plan C. Do we still need to go through with it? Goku's calm voice surprised the hysterical Bulma, and was about to confirm her plans. However, he had a different idea. No. Go for Plan D. Another change in plans, it really showed how cautious Goku was. This plan, however, didn't really sit well with Chi-Chi and Bulma. They felt it was unnecessary and dumb. Plan D? Why Plan D? Let's just go plan C and have you come back. I can just make another ship for you. Bulma wasn't having any of it. She wasn't going to work her butt off and think that her love was dead just to have him initiate Plan D. Trust me on this, Bulma. Go Plan D. As he said this, he was staring into the dark pupils of Chi-Chi. Like hell I will. Goku, you listen, Dash. Bulma, do it. Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi interrupted Bulma's thoughts and sided with Goku. While looking at Goku, she couldn't help but feel like he was on top of the world. She didn't know if it was the new look that was getting to her, though. You. Ugh. Fine. Caulifla, do it. And with that, Bulma hung up. Goku gave the senzu beans to Chi-Chi. Understanding what due to, she went inside the ship and gave it to everyone before they could die. Goku turned to face the frost demons that were looking at him with great fear. I knew we should have killed him when we got the chance, but you wanted to play with that harlot. You are truly too spoiled, brother. Who knew that he was going to transform into the legendary Super Saiyan of the past? I thought that accursed hairy form was his limit. The crew of people started to line up behind Goku. Cooler smirked at the obvious weak spot. It doesn't matter. With their ship destroyed, those weaklings could not escape. He can't take both of us while also protecting them. Both of them started to laugh very evil laughs. You could tell it was evil because it sounded like every other villain ever. His plan was ingenious. An ingenious plan it was. Too bad that the victims that he targeted were disappearing right before his very eyes. What? The sky was dark with an eternal dragon covering the sky instead. I want all of the people that went with Goku to return to Earth. Not Goku himself. Bulma hesitated a bit at the end. Your wish is done. Goodbye. And like that, Shinran went back inside his residence and dashed away in 7 separate directions. Making sure to grant their wish before leaving, several bright lights appeared before them. Dimming out a bit, it was revealed to be Vegeta, Piccolo, Raditz, Chi-Chi, Bulla, and Gohan like Bulma asked. The latter 3 all rushed to Bulma when they saw where they were and hugged her. Bulma wasn't having any of it and demanded what happened. Why did we use Plan D, where we leave Goku instead of Plan C, where everyone is brought back? Something happened to Goku, his hair it was. Kakarot turned into a Super Saiyan, that bastard. Vegeta chimed in, and his words shocked everyone, especially the Saiyans to their core. Achieving a transformation of the legends was no easy feat. Vegeta stormed off, as everyone else got close to Caulifla and Kale to hear the tale of what happened on Earth. Vegeta was hiding, listening in as well.